There is an awful lot of nonsense talked about running 37s on a Land Rover and how it's all possible. So this little video is going to explain why we do not recommend people to run 37s on a Land Rover axle, however exotic a build. Just as an example, this is just an ordinary standard Land Rover differential. And what we have here is a broken Y61 260 heavy, which runs on 37s. And as you can see, it's a little bit bigger. So what we're going to do here is compare an ARB, which is being put into this, which I think is an RD05, with a Land Rover ARB, which is an RD128. And maybe you'll see why we say if you want to run 37s, you need a bigger diff. The only problem when you come to something like this is the costs. The ARB itself is more money than a top of the range ash locker in a peg casing with a heavy duty crown wheel and pinion, including VAT. And that's just for the ARB. The bearings are enough to frighten the daredevil. But this video is going to show you the difference between something that can run 37s quite happily but can still brake, and something where you're really pushing your luck. More in a minute. So here we have a jolly old Land Rover ARB RD128, normal Land Rover size diff centre, and here we have an RD205 for the H260, and as you can see, it's a little bit bigger. In fact, it's a lot bigger. And as you'll see as we go through the video, this is why 37s on that are really pushing your luck when you could even still break that. Let's have a little look at the insides, which is also a bit heavier duty on this. So if we lift that off, there's a fairly substantial plate. The lock ring on this is much heavier duty. You can actually get Spider Track's upgrade on this. And then you've got the spring, and then you've got the gear. No cross shaft, you just got four very big shafts in there. We'll compare this with an RD128. So here we have the locking rings. So this is the Y61 lock ring, quite big teeth. And here is the one for an RD128. If you put the two together, there is a significant difference in size. Moreover, when you actually look at the gears, here's the gear for an RD128, standard Land Rover 24 spline shaft. My glamorous assistant will now balance the big gear in my hand. This has got a 37 spline. The actual size of that half shaft is huge. It's probably 1.5 times as big, and the gear itself is massive. Let's have a look at the bearings. So here you've got the Y61 tail, which is bigger than the Land Rover, but not a huge amount. And you've got the head bearing, that's significantly bigger than the Land Rover one. But bear in mind, a lot of centres fail and crown wheels break because of the carrier bearing. Right, there's the carrier bearing. We've got Nissan on the left and the Land Rover one on the right. Penny dropping now, anyone? Here we have a Land Rover crown wheel bolt, and here we have H260 crown wheel bolt. Quite a lot bigger. The pinion is in a different league. It's about twice as high and twice as thick. With a whopping great gear set at the bottom with very big teeth. And we're going to have real fun getting that off, because our special tool that we use for the Land Rover one, that's not even going to fit in it, let alone get it off. Can't wait. Manual bearing removal, stuff of nightmares. We've finally got the bearing off. One of the things you've got to be very careful with these is the shim, which fits between the bearing and the root of the pinion. So we're going to put the bearing on now. We've managed to find one of our special tools that actually fits this. Bearing on. tight fit. We're on 8 tons, 10 tons. Bingo. Moving on. Even turned up a special tool, Mr. Booth, to actually get these massive carrier bearings on. Yippee! And there's the crown wheel itself, which is a fairly chunky unit, nice and thick, captive bolts in the back. We'll just give you a comparison against a standard Land Rover crown wheel. Hardly any difference in size at all. So now we've just got to put it together. This is like building 2 diffs, the weights are heavy. Bit of a difference. After much deciding where to drill the hole, we're drilling the hole. Hope it's right. Hey Chris, how tall are you, Grant?
6'1".
Yeah, unfortunately, because it's a bit bigger than a Land Rover casing, we've had to drag out some special equipment to reach up for it, because the casing's that much bigger. Meanwhile, cleaned up, we've drilled a hole, we're praying it's in the right position, pinions in, new head tail, now the Mahuhu centre goes in. And for the money that this ARB was, the way it fits together is frankly amazing. We have the bearing on the end there. There's a very small area for it to get the O-rings on. There's the end flange that goes on. It goes on there and then is trapped in position with the outer adjustment ring, which goes on top. And then I've got to drill a hole, believe it or not, through the carrier cap to let the pipe out. We'll just try and get this damn thing to fit together, because it had a big burr on it. So once that's on there like that, then this bit has to go on and clamp it into position, and then I've got to drill a hole through the carrier cap here to let the pipe out. Can't wait. So after weeks of Googling, we've managed to find an alternative bearing. Basically we need one with what's called a recessed cage. Here you can see actually the cage is sticking out quite a long way. So now on the ARB side, with the very special bearing that we found, the cage here is actually recessed from the race there, so this is quite significantly lower, and we're hoping that we can now fit the airing on, because if not, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. We've had to go with 4 different bearings so far, all with the same part number. And I've seen some weird fittings in my time, but we've actually had to drill a hole through the carrier cap. It's the proper way of doing it, apparently. Select where we're going to drill it and drill it through. Didn't mean to do that. So we can fit this really weird air pipe from ARB. This is really a nightmare of a diff to build. So we've got to thread this through the hole, and can't wait. So finally, this is about a 3.5 day build. There are some weird things on this. The pipe has the normal ARB over the top of the carrier, and yes, that is factory. We have to drill a hole in the right place in the carrier cap to allow the ring to come through. A weird design. It also means that if you ever on an RD125 want to change the O-rings in the seal housing here, you're going to have to take this off, which is going to completely bugger up all the backlash and adjustment there. So this is a really, well, I don't think I've seen a worse design for an air coupling ring, and it's right on the edge there. It's almost sticky over, but it's done. And what I do know is that the owner of this, I think when he admitted, he spent 8,500 on his axles. So yes, you can buy diffs stronger than a Land Rover, but they're going to cost you. And there you go. One Y61 H260 RD215 Mocha. Bye for now.